Tyler wiped the hydraulic fluid from his hands onto his already stained coveralls and squinted at the diagnostic panel. The refueling station orbited a forgotten moon in the outer colonies, and most days passed without a single ship docking. He preferred it that way. Less conversation meant more time to keep the aging equipment running, and Tyler had always been better with machines than people. The proximity alarm shattered the silence. Tyler's head snapped up as red lights flooded the control room. Something big was coming in fast. Too fast. He rushed to the viewing port and his breath caught in his throat. A massive vessel emerged from the darkness of space, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from a gaping wound in its hull. The ship's design was unmistakable, with flowing curves and metallic scales that reflected starlight like polished gemstones. Dracovian. Royal Crest class. Tyler had never seen a Dracovian ship this far out in human territory. Nobody had. The reptilian empire kept to themselves, viewing most other species as inferior and contaminated. His fingers flew across the console, extending the docking clamps and pressurizing the airlock. Whatever brought them here must be desperate. The ship settled into the dock with a groan of stressed metal. Tyler grabbed his toolkit out of habit and headed to the airlock. His heart hammered against his ribs. He had heard stories about the Dracovians. 7 feet tall with scales harder than titanium. Cold-blooded. Cold-hearted. They barely acknowledged humans existed except when they needed manual labor for jobs too dirty for their pristine hands. The airlock hissed open and Tyler stepped back instinctively. 4 Dracovian guards emerged first, their scales a deep crimson that seemed to pulse with inner light. Each carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their eyes, vertical slits of gold, fixed on Tyler with an intensity that made him feel like prey. Behind them came 2 more Dracovians, clearly younger but no less imposing. The male had scales of midnight blue with silver edges, and he moved with the controlled grace of a trained warrior. The female beside him shimmered in shades of emerald and jade. Both wore expressions Tyler had never seen on Dracovian faces before. Fear, grief, desperation. Then came the physicians, 3 of them in flowing white robes, carrying equipment Tyler did not recognize. They surrounded a floating medical pod, and through the transparent surface Tyler saw her. The Dracovian inside the pod barely looked alive. Her scales had turned a sickly ash gray, cracked and flaking like old paint. Where there should have been the characteristic Dracovian bioluminescence, there was only dull, dying flesh. Her breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. The blue-scaled male stepped forward. Human. I am Crown Prince Draven of the Dracovian Empire. This station will serve as temporary medical facility. You will maintain all systems and stay out of our way. Tyler nodded mutely. He wanted to ask what happened, why they were here, but the words stuck in his throat. The prince's tone made it clear questions would not be welcome. The emerald female, Princess Lyra, touched her brother's arm gently. Draven, he needs to understand the situation. If the life support fails. Her voice trailed off, thick with emotion. Prince Draven's jaw tightened but he nodded. The Empress Velris, our mother and ruler of the Dracovian Empire, suffers from scale rot. It is a degenerative disease with no known cure. We have traveled to 17 systems, consulted with the greatest medical minds in the galaxy. All have failed. This is our last hope before we return home for her final days. Tyler found his voice. What is here that could help? This is just a refueling station. A physician on the last world suggested environmental factors might slow the progression, Princess Lyra explained. The radiation signature of this moon matches theoretical parameters. It is unlikely to work, but we must try everything. They moved the medical pod to the station's small cargo bay, transforming it into a makeshift hospital. Tyler watched from the doorway as the physicians worked with equipment that looked more like art than medicine. Crystalline arrays projected holographic scans of the Empress's deteriorating cellular structure. Devices hummed and pulsed, administering treatments that did nothing to stop the gray death spreading across her scales. Hours passed. Tyler tried to focus on his own work, checking pressure seals and recalibrating fuel flow systems. But he kept finding excuses to walk past the cargo bay. Through the open door, he could see Prince Draven standing rigid as a statue, watching the physicians work. Princess Lyra sat beside her mother's pod, speaking softly in the musical Dracovian language. The proximity alarm chimed again, much softer this time. A fuel shipment Tyler had forgotten he ordered. He grabbed an equipment case and headed to the secondary airlock. The delivery was automated, just cargo pods that needed to be manually transferred to the station's tanks. Simple work. Mindless work. Exactly what he needed to stop thinking about the dying Empress in his cargo bay. Tyler loaded 3 containers onto a hover cart and started back through the station. The route took him past the cargo bay. He should have gone around. Should have taken the long way. But some part of him needed to see if anything had changed. He was glancing through the doorway when his boot caught on an uneven floor panel. Tyler stumbled forward, arms windmilling, the hover cart crashing into his legs. He fell through the doorway, his equipment case flying from his hands. He reached out desperately to catch himself, and his grease-stained palms slapped against something smooth and cool. Time seemed to stop. Tyler found himself on his knees, his hand pressed against the surface of the medical pod. No, not the pod. His hand had gone through the pod's open access panel where the physicians had been working. His palm was pressed directly against the Empress's dying scales. The guards' weapons hummed to life, charging with lethal energy. Prince Draven's roar of outrage filled the room. Princess Lyra gasped. The physicians froze in horror. Tyler tried to jerk his hand back, stammering apologies, but then he saw it. Where his skin touched the Empress's scales, the ash gray was changing. Color bloomed like ink spreading through water. Violet light pulsed beneath the surface, growing stronger with each of the Empress's shallow breaths. The cracks in her scales began to seal. The bioluminescence that had been dead for years flickered to life. The room went silent except for the hum of equipment and Tyler's terrified breathing. He slowly pulled his hand away, leaving behind a perfect handprint of healthy, glowing violet scales in a sea of dying gray. Every eye in the room stared at that impossible handprint. Then every eye turned to Tyler. The head physician, an elderly Dracovian named Thesic, was the first to break the stunned silence. His silver scales seemed to shimmer with excitement as he rushed forward, scanners already extended from his medical equipment. He stopped just short of Tyler, who remained frozen on his knees beside the medical pod. "Do not move, human," Thesic commanded, though his voice carried wonder rather than hostility. "Prince Draven, lower your weapons. Something extraordinary has occurred." Prince Draven's hand remained on his sidearm, his golden eyes burning with suspicion. "That creature touched the Empress. By law, he should be executed immediately." "Look at her scales, my prince," Princess Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. She had moved closer to the pod, her fingers hovering over the violet handprint. "I have not seen that color on Mother's scales since I was a child." Thesic circled Tyler slowly, his scanners painting the human with invisible light. "The contact point shows complete cellular regeneration. The scale rot has reversed in that exact location. This should be impossible." Tyler finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a squeak. "I'm sorry. I tripped. I did not mean to touch her. Please do not kill me." "Explain what you did," Thesic demanded, moving his scanners over the Empress's healing scales. "What technique did you use? What energy did you channel?" "Nothing. I just fell and my hand landed on her. That is all that happened." The other 2 physicians joined Thesic, their equipment creating a symphony of beeps and hums as they analyzed the impossible healing. One of them, a younger female with pale blue scales, looked up with wide eyes. "The cellular structure has completely reformed. The genetic damage from the scale rot has been repaired. I have never seen anything like this." Prince Draven stepped forward, his massive frame towering over Tyler. "You will touch her again. Under observation. If this is some human trick, some poison that appears as healing, you will die slowly." Tyler's hands shook as the physicians positioned him beside the medical pod. They marked specific areas on the Empress's dying scales with holographic markers, creating a grid for their observations. Thesic nodded to Tyler. "Place your hand on the marked area. Maintain contact for exactly 10 seconds. Tyler reached out slowly, his fingertips making contact with the Empress's shoulder scales. The gray scales felt cold and rough like touching stone. Then warmth spread from his palm. He watched in amazement as color bloomed beneath his touch. Violet light pulsed stronger and stronger. The cracked scales smoothed and sealed. When Thesic told him to remove his hand, another perfect handprint of healthy scales remained. The physicians erupted into rapid conversation in their own language. Their scanners worked furiously, projecting 3-dimensional images of cellular structures into the air. Princess Lyra moved beside Tyler, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You are generating heat," she said softly, holding her hand near his arm without touching. "I can feel it from here. And something else. Like a vibration in the air." Thesic overheard and immediately began new scans focused on Tyler himself. "Fascinating. The human is emitting significant thermal radiation. His surface temperature is nearly 40 degrees warmer than standard Dracovian body temperature. And yes, there is a bioelectric field surrounding him. Quite strong actually. All humans do this? The younger physician asked. I guess so, Tyler said. We are warm-blooded. Our bodies maintain constant temperature. I never thought about it before. The physicians exchanged glances that Tyler could not read. Thesic manipulated his scanner, pulling up charts and data that meant nothing to the human. This changes everything. Dracovians evolved on a cold world with low radiation. Our cellular regeneration requires specific energy inputs. We have always obtained this through our diet and controlled exposure to certain minerals. What are you saying? Prince Draven demanded. The scale rod appeared 50 years ago, Thesic continued, his voice growing more animated. It coincided with our empire's purity protocols. We began avoiding worlds with high radiation. We limited contact with warm-blooded species. We created sterile environments to protect ourselves from contamination. Princess Lyra gasped. You are saying we made ourselves sick? Our cells need the very things we have been avoiding. The thermal energy. The bioelectric stimulation. We thought we were protecting ourselves, but we were starving our cellular regeneration processes. Thesic turned to Tyler. This human is a walking source of exactly what Dracovian cells require to heal. His body naturally produces what our most advanced medicine cannot replicate. Tyler felt dozens of eyes on him. The guards had lowered their weapons but watched him like he might explode at any moment. The physicians looked at him like he was a puzzle they desperately wanted to solve. Prince Draven and Princess Lyra stared at him with something that might have been hope. Can you save her? Princess Lyra asked Thesic, but her eyes never left Tyler. The old physician examined the 2 healing handprints on the Empress's scales. The scale rot covers 70% of her body. The healing we have witnessed is localized to the exact points of contact. For complete recovery, sustained contact over many hours would be required. Perhaps days. Then we will begin immediately, Prince Draven declared. My prince, Thesic said carefully. The royal contact laws are very clear. No commoner may touch a member of the royal family. The penalty is death for both parties. These laws have stood for 3,000 years. The cargo bay fell silent. Tyler watched the conflict play across Prince Draven's face. The rigid prince stood straighter, his scales darkening with stress. Princess Lyra moved to her brother's side, placing a hand on his arm. The law exists to protect the royal bloodline, she said quietly. But what good is bloodline if mother dies? What good is tradition if the empire loses its empress? If I break this law, I break 3 millennia of precedent, Draven said through clenched teeth. The noble houses will call it weakness. They will challenge our right to rule. There will be chaos. Thesic bowed his head. The choice is yours, my prince. But I must tell you that without sustained contact from this human, the Empress has perhaps 3 days before the scale rot reaches her vital organs. After that, nothing can save her. Tyler cleared his throat and everyone turned to look at him. I do not understand your laws or your politics. But I can help. If you need me to touch her so she can heal, I will do it. I did not ask for this, but I will not let someone die when I can help them. Prince Draven studied Tyler for a long moment. The human was small compared to Dracovians, covered in grease stains and wearing worn coveralls. He looked nothing like the dignified physicians or noble warriors. He was just a simple mechanic who had stumbled into something far bigger than himself. What is your name, human? Draven asked. Tyler, sir. Tyler, Draven repeated as if testing the strange word. You understand that if I authorize this, you will be bound to the Empress until she heals or dies. You cannot leave. You cannot refuse. Your life will be forfeit if you fail. Tyler swallowed hard but nodded. I understand. Prince Draven looked at his mother's dying form in the medical pod, then at his sister's pleading eyes, then back to Tyler. The weight of 3,000 years of tradition pressed against the desperate love for his mother. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the tone of someone stepping off a cliff into darkness. Thesic, prepare the contact protocols. This human is hereby authorized as temporary medical assistant to the Empress. May the ancestors forgive me. The physicians worked through the night preparing the healing chamber. They converted the entire cargo bay into a sterile medical facility, though Thesic noted the irony of creating sterile conditions for a treatment that required human contact. Tyler stood to the side, watching them transform his simple storage area into something that belonged in a palace. Princess Lyra approached him with a bundle of clean clothes. You cannot wear those grease-covered garments near the Empress. These are simple robes, nothing fancy, but they are clean. Tyler took the clothes gratefully. Thank you. I have never worn anything like this before. You have also never saved an empress before? Lyra said with a small smile. There are many firsts happening today. When Tyler returned in the flowing gray robes, he barely recognized himself. The physicians positioned a chair beside the medical pod, which they had reconfigured to allow access to the Empress while maintaining her life support systems. Thesic explained the protocol with clinical precision. You will place both hands on the Empress's back scales. Maintain contact for 4 hours, then rest for 2 hours. We will repeat this cycle until the scale rod is completely healed. The process may take several weeks. Weeks? Tyler's voice cracked. I have to sit here for weeks? Unless you prefer the Empress dies, Prince Draven said coldly from the doorway. In which case you die as well. Tyler sat down in the chair and slowly reached toward the Empress. His hands hovered over her back for a moment, still unable to believe he was about to touch royalty. Then he made contact and warmth flooded from his palms into her cold scales. The first day was the hardest. Tyler's arms ached from holding the same position. His back cramped from sitting so still. The Empress remained unconscious, barely breathing, giving no sign that the treatment was working. But each 4-hour session left more violet scales where there had been gray death. The physicians monitored everything, their scanners creating detailed maps of the healing progression. On the second day the Empress stirred. Her eyes, a deep amber color, flickered open briefly. She looked directly at Tyler, confusion crossing her features, before slipping back into unconscious rest. Prince Draven, who maintained a constant vigil in the corner, tensed but said nothing. By the 5th day Tyler had fallen into a rhythm. During his rest periods he would walk the station to stretch his legs. Princess Lyra often joined him, asking questions about humans and Earth. She seemed genuinely curious rather than condescending like her brother. I do not understand how your species survives being so warm all the time, she said during one walk. Does it not exhaust you? We do not think about it, Tyler explained. It is just how we are. Do you think about being cold? Lyra laughed, a musical sound. I suppose not. It is strange how we fear what we do not understand. For generations we were taught that warm-blooded species were chaotic and dangerous. Too much energy, too much disorder. We built our entire civilization around coldness and order. And now a warm-blooded human is saving your Empress, Tyler said. Yes. The irony is not lost on us. On the 10th day the Empress woke during a treatment session. Tyler felt her scales shift under his palms and froze. Her head turned slowly, her amber eyes focusing on him with full awareness now. You are the human, she said, her voice raspy from disuse but carrying unmistakable authority. The one who heals with touch. Yes, your majesty. My name is Tyler. Tyler, she repeated, the name sounding strange in her accent. How long have you been doing this? 10 days, your majesty. The physicians say you are 40% healed. Empress Velrish tried to look at her own scales but the position made it difficult. I feel stronger. The pain is less. But I am confused. Why would a human help a Dracovian? Our species have barely acknowledged each other's existence. Tyler thought about his answer carefully. Because I could help. When I saw you dying and realized I could do something about it, the choice seemed simple. I could not just walk away. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. That is very human of you. We Dracovians would calculate the political advantages, the potential gains, the risks. We would make it complicated. You made it simple. Over the following weeks, the Empress remained conscious during treatments. She began to talk with Tyler, asking about his life, his work, his world. Tyler learned about Dracovian history, their rise to power through careful control and order. The Empress spoke of the purity protocols that had shaped the last 50 years of their civilization. We became obsessed with perfection, she explained during one session. We removed ourselves from anything we deemed contaminated or chaotic. We sealed ourselves away in temperature-controlled cities. We stopped visiting worlds with high radiation. We cut contact with species like yours that we considered too messy. And that is when the scale rod appeared? Tyler asked. Within 5 years of the full protocols being enacted. At first it was rare. Then it spread. Our greatest scientists could not understand why. They looked for external causes, for viruses or toxins. They never considered we might be poisoning ourselves with our own purity. Thesic, who was monitoring nearby, joined the conversation. The human concept of controlled exposure is fascinating. They intentionally introduce weakened diseases into their bodies to build immunity. They consume bacteria to aid digestion. They understand that life requires a certain amount of chaos. We forgot that lesson, Velrus said sadly. We thought we could engineer perfection. Instead, we engineered our own destruction. By the 4th week, the transformation was remarkable. The Empress's scales gleamed with vibrant violet and gold. Her bioluminescence pulsed strong and steady. She could stand without assistance, could move without pain. The physicians ran test after test, all showing complete cellular regeneration. Prince Draven watched his mother's recovery with conflicted emotions clear on his face. Tyler could see the relief warring with something else. Shame perhaps, or anger at having to break tradition. On the final day of treatment, as Tyler prepared to remove his hands for the last time, the Empress caught his wrist gently. Her scales were warm now, heated by the weeks of contact with his thermal energy. You have given me my life back, Tyler. More than that, you have given my people a truth we desperately needed to learn. We cannot survive in isolation. We cannot achieve perfection through purity. Life requires diversity, requires contact with things different from ourselves. She released his wrist and Tyler stepped back. The Empress stood from the medical pod for the first time in months, her scales catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. Princess Lyra rushed forward to embrace her mother, tears streaming down her face. Even Prince Draven's rigid expression cracked into something like joy. Thesic immediately sent word to the Dracovian homeworld. Within hours, the news spread across the Empire through their quantum communication networks. The Empress lives. Saved by a human. Healed by the very thermal energy and bioelectric fields they had spent decades avoiding. Tyler watched the celebration from the corner of the cargo bay, still wearing his simple gray robes. He had been just a mechanic, content to work alone on a forgotten station. Now he had changed the course of an entire civilization, simply by being himself. By being warm when they needed warmth. By being messy when their perfection was killing them. The Empress caught his eye across the room and nodded to him. A gesture of respect between equals. Tyler nodded back, understanding that nothing would ever be simple again. The first transmission from the Dracovian homeworld arrived 3 days after news of the Empress's recovery spread. Tyler was eating a simple meal in the station's small kitchen when Prince Draven stormed in, his scales dark with anger. The Noble Council demands an emergency session, Draven said, throwing a data tablet onto the table. They want explanations. They want assurances. They want you removed from my mother's presence immediately. Tyler set down his fork slowly. I thought the treatment was finished. The Empress is healed. That does not matter to them. They are calling your contact with her a violation of sacred law. They say you have corrupted her with human contamination. Some are even suggesting she is no longer fit to rule. Princess Lyra entered behind her brother, her emerald scales shimmering with distress. It is worse than that. Lord Cassix is leading a faction that wants Tyler executed as an example. They claim allowing a human to touch the Empress sets a dangerous precedent that will destroy Dracovian purity. Tyler felt his stomach drop. But I saved her life. They do not care, Lyra said bitterly. To them, tradition matters more than life. They would rather she had died with her purity intact than live after human contact. The Empress herself appeared in the doorway, moving with a grace she had not possessed in years. Her scales glowed with health, but her expression was troubled. The council convenes in 2 hours via quantum link. They will demand I return home immediately and submit to purification rituals. They will demand Tyler be punished. What will you tell them? Tyler asked quietly. The truth. And the truth they will not want to hear. The Empress moved to the window looking out at the stars. Princess Lyra, show him the medical reports. Lyra activated a holographic display. Dozens of faces appeared, all Dracovian, all showing varying stages of scale deterioration. These are confirmed cases of scale rot and similar degenerative conditions across the Empire. The official count is 47, but we believe the real number is much higher. Many families hide their sick to avoid shame. 47 that we know of, the Empress said. All developed within the last 20 years. All in individuals who strictly followed the purity protocols. The evidence is clear. Our isolation is killing us. Tyler studied the faces in the hologram. Young and old, male and female, all with the same gray dying scales the Empress had possessed. Can they be helped the same way? That is what the Council fears most, Draven said. Not just one human touching one Dracovian, but humans integrated into our medical system. Humans working alongside our physicians. It would shatter everything they believe about racial purity. The quantum link activated precisely on time. The cargo bay filled with holographic projections of 12 Dracovian nobles, each more ornately decorated than the last. At the center sat Lord Cassix, an ancient Dracovian with deep purple scales and eyes that burned with cold fire. Empress Velris, Cassix began without preamble. We rejoice at your recovery, but we are deeply troubled by the methods employed. You have allowed a human, a creature of chaos and contamination, to place his hands upon your sacred person. You have violated laws that have protected our bloodline for millennia. The Empress stood tall, her scales pulsing with authority. I was dying, Lord Cassix. The disease had progressed beyond what any Dracovian physician could treat. This human, through no fault of his own, discovered he could heal me. I chose life over tradition. A choice that may doom us all, another noble interjected. If we accept human contact as medicine, where does it end? Do we allow them into our cities? Our homes? Our sacred spaces? The purity protocols exist for good reason. Do they? Princess Lyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the council chamber. Mother, allow me. The Empress nodded and Lyra activated her medical data. The holographic faces of the sick appeared before the council. These are our people. Dracovians suffering from scale rot and similar conditions. All developed after the purity protocols were fully implemented. Our own isolation is making us sick. Lord Cassix's scales darkened. You suggest we abandon centuries of wisdom based on a few isolated cases? 47 confirmed cases is not isolated, Thesic interjected, stepping into view. As chief physician, I have reviewed the data extensively. The correlation is undeniable. Our bodies require certain environmental factors that the purity protocols deny us. Thermal radiation, bioelectric stimulation, controlled exposure to diverse biological systems. Humans provide these naturally. This is propaganda, Cassix hissed. The human has corrupted you all. This is exactly why we must maintain separation. Contact with inferior species leads to weakened thinking. Tyler had remained silent until now, but something in Cassix's tone made his anger flare. I'm standing right here. If you want to insult me, at least have the courage to do it to my face instead of talking about me like I am not in the room. The council chamber went silent. Several nobles gasped at a human daring to speak directly to them. Cassix's eyes narrowed dangerously. You see, Cassix said to the other nobles. This is what comes from allowing humans too close. They forget their place. They develop delusions of equality. He saved my life, the Empress said sharply. That earns him the right to speak. The debate raged for hours. Some nobles sided with the Empress, moved by the medical evidence. Others aligned with Cassix, viewing any change to purity protocols as civilizational suicide. Finally, Cassix played his final card. Very well, Empress. The council is divided. We cannot force you to punish the human or yourself. But we can protect the Empire from further contamination. As of this moment, the council votes to forbid any human from entering Dracovian space. Any Dracovian who seeks human medical treatment will be exiled. The purity protocols will be strengthened, not weakened. You would condemn your own people to death rather than admit you were wrong? Lyra demanded. We would preserve our civilization, Cassix replied coldly. Even if individuals must be sacrificed for the greater good. The transmission ended abruptly. The Empress stood rigid, her scales flickering with barely controlled rage. They have made their choice. Now I must make mine. That night Tyler could not sleep. He paced his small quarters, replaying the council session in his mind. A soft chime at his door made him jump. Princess Lyra stood in the corridor, her scales dim with worry. You need to leave this station, she said urgently. Now. My mother's intelligence network intercepted communications. Cassix has hired assassins. They are already en route. Assassins? To kill me? To kill you and make it look like an accident. If you die, the Empress has no proof that human contact works. The medical data can be dismissed as fraud. Everything returns to how it was. Tyler felt cold despite his warm blood. What about your mother? What about the other sick people? They will die, Lyra said, her voice breaking. Unless we can find another way. But first we need to keep you alive. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Lyra's scales pulsed with alarm. They are here already. We are out of time. Tyler heard the sound of the airlock being forced open. Footsteps echoed through the corridors, moving with military precision. He looked at Lyra, seeing his own fear reflected in her amber eyes. What do we do? He whispered. The princess drew a weapon Tyler had not known she carried. Her scales hardened into armored plates, a defensive reflex he had not seen before. We survive. And we show them that humans and Dracovians together are stronger than either alone. The attackers moved through the station with deadly efficiency. Tyler could hear them methodically clearing each corridor, sealing exits, cutting off escape routes. Princess Lyra pulled him into a service tunnel that ran beneath the main deck, a cramped maintenance passage Tyler used for repairs. "Stay quiet and follow me," she whispered, her weapon raised and ready. They crawled through the darkness for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Behind them, Tyler heard shouting in the Dracovian language and the sharp crack of energy weapons firing. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was insane. He was a mechanic, not a soldier. Lyra stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. Footsteps echoed above them. The grating creaked under someone's weight. Tyler held his breath until the sounds moved away. Lyra continued forward until they reached a junction that opened into the station's emergency escape pod bay. "We can launch from here," she said. "Get to the nearest human outpost and request protection." "What about your mother? What about you?" Before Lyra could answer, a massive explosion rocked the station. The walls groaned and buckled. Emergency seals slammed down across sections of the corridor. Through the chaos, Tyler heard Prince Draven's voice booming over the station speakers. "Attention all forces. You are attacking a vessel under protection of the Dracovian Empress. Stand down immediately or face execution for treason." The royal cruiser, which had remained docked to the station, roared to life. Tyler felt the vibration through the floor as its weapon systems activated. The attacking ship had no chance. Within seconds, Draven had disabled their vessel and breached their hull. Royal guards swarmed through the station, capturing the assassins one by one. Tyler and Lyra emerged from the service tunnel to find the cargo bay filled with captured attackers. 6 Dracovians in unmarked armor knelt on the floor, their weapons confiscated. Prince Draven stood over them, his scales dark with rage. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The lead assassin, a scarred Dracovian with gray scales, remained silent. Draven raised his weapon but the Empress's voice stopped him. "That will not be necessary, my son. I already know who sent them." The Empress entered the cargo bay, flanked by Thesic and 2 guards. She moved to a computer terminal and activated the holographic display. Communications logs appeared, encrypted messages, financial transactions. Tyler watched the data scroll past without understanding most of it. "I have suspected for months," the Empress said, her voice carrying a weight of sadness. "My scale rot did not develop naturally. It was induced through slow poisoning. Small doses of a compound that disrupts scale regeneration, administered over years through my food." Gasps echoed through the room. Prince Draven's weapon lowered slightly. "Mother, what are you saying?" "Lord Cassix and his conservative faction did this. They poisoned me because I advocated for opening relations with other species, including humans. They believed if I died from scale rot, it would prove that contact with outsiders was dangerous. It would strengthen their purity arguments." She manipulated the display showing medical records. "But they made a mistake. They assumed Dracovian medicine would fail to save me, which it did. What they could not predict was Tyler. His accidental healing exposed their entire plot. If a human could reverse scale rot through simple contact, it proved the disease was not caused by outside contamination but by our own isolation." Thesic stepped forward, adding his analysis. "I have reviewed the Empress's medical history with this new information. The chemical signature is clear. This was deliberate poisoning disguised as natural disease progression. When Tyler healed her, he not only saved her life but also purged the poison from her system." Tyler felt sick. "They tried to kill you. Their own Empress. Just to make a political point. Power makes people do terrible things," Velrus said. "But their plan has failed. They sent these assassins to eliminate you, to destroy the proof that human contact can heal us. Instead, they have shown their desperation. They know the truth will destroy their influence." The lead assassin finally spoke. "You cannot prove Lord Cassix ordered this. We will say nothing. Without our testimony, you have only suspicions." The Empress smiled coldly. "I do not need your testimony. I have something better." She activated another communication. This time it connected directly to the Dracovian homeworld, but not to the council chamber. Instead, dozens of faces appeared, all Dracovian civilians. Tyler recognized some from the medical reports Lyra had shown, individuals suffering from scale rot and similar conditions. "These are our people," the Empress announced. "Citizens who have been suffering in silence while the council debated politics. I'm offering them a choice. Continue to follow purity protocols and die, or accept human medical assistance and live." A young Dracovian female with patches of gray on her green scales spoke first. Your Majesty, I have 2 children. I want to see them grow up. If human contact can heal me, I accept. One by one, the sick Dracovians voiced their agreement. Some were hesitant, clearly struggling against lifelong teachings about purity. But the desperation in their eyes won out over doctrine. They wanted to live. Prince Draven, the Empress commanded. Send word across the Empire. Any Dracovian suffering from scale rot or similar conditions can come to this station for treatment. We will train human medical technicians to help them. This station becomes the first human Dracovian medical exchange. Draven stood frozen for a moment, the weight of what his mother was proposing sinking in. Then, slowly he straightened and saluted. It will be done, Mother. The news spread through the Empire like wildfire. Conservative nobles like Cassix tried to suppress it, but they could not silence the sick and dying who saw hope for the first time. Within weeks, the first patients began arriving at the station. Tyler worked alongside Thesic to train human volunteers in the contact therapy protocols. The process was simple but required patience. Humans would sit with Dracovian patients for hours, maintaining skin contact while their natural bioelectric fields and thermal radiation stimulated cellular regeneration. It was not glamorous work. It was uncomfortable and tedious. But it worked. Tyler watched as patient after patient recovered. Scales that had been gray and dying bloomed with color. Dracovians who had not walked in years stood on their own. Families reunited with loved ones they thought they would lose. The gratitude in their eyes made every uncomfortable hour worthwhile. The political fallout was severe. Lord Cassix and several conservative nobles were arrested for conspiracy and attempted murder. The evidence of poisoning was overwhelming once investigators knew what to look for. Some noble houses fell from power entirely. Others adapted, accepting the new reality that isolation was death. 6 months after Tyler first accidentally touched the Empress, she summoned him to the cargo bay for a formal ceremony. The small station had been transformed, expanded with Dracovian technology to accommodate the growing medical exchange. Human and Dracovian physicians worked side by side now, sharing knowledge and techniques. The Empress stood before Tyler in full royal regalia, her scales magnificent in violet and gold. Prince Draven and Princess Lyra flanked her. Behind them, hundreds of recovered patients watched via holographic transmission. Tyler, human of Earth, the Empress said formally. You came to us as a simple mechanic. You saved not just my life but the lives of thousands of our people. You exposed corruption and proved that cooperation between species makes us stronger, not weaker. Today, I offer you a position that has never existed before. She gestured and Draven stepped forward with a crystal cylinder. Inside, Tyler could see an ornate badge of office, designed with both human and Dracovian symbols intertwined. I name you the first royal physician of the Dracovian Empire, with full authority over the medical exchange. You will train others, both human and Dracovian, in the healing arts. You will bridge our 2 species and show the galaxy that diversity is strength. Tyler accepted the badge with shaking hands. It felt impossibly heavy, weighted with responsibility. Your Majesty, I do not know if I am qualified for this. I am just a mechanic who got lucky. The Empress smiled warmly. You are a healer who proved that sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. That being yourself, with all your human warmth and messiness, is exactly what we needed. Do you accept? Tyler looked around the cargo bay. At the Dracovian physicians who had welcomed him as a colleague. At Princess Lyra who had become a true friend. At the holographic images of patients whose lives he had helped save. At Prince Draven whose rigid respect had slowly transformed into something like trust. I accept, he said. The Empress placed her hand on his shoulder, her scales warm from months of contact with human healers. Then let us build something new together. Not Dracovian perfection or human chaos, but a partnership that celebrates both. Let us show the galaxy what happens when different species choose cooperation over isolation. Tyler smiled, thinking about how far he had come from a lonely mechanic on a forgotten station. His warmth, the very thing Dracovians had once considered contamination, had become their cure. And in healing them he had found his own purpose. The medical exchange grew. More humans volunteered. More Dracovians sought treatment. The partnership expanded beyond medicine into trade, culture, and science. 2 species that had barely acknowledged each other's existence now worked together to solve problems neither could face alone. And it all started because one mechanic tripped and accidentally touched an Empress,